Welcome to the fourth and final day of the swimming programme of the 2023 NatWest International Ireland Games being held at the Beausejour Leisure Centre. My name is Conor Osborough and I will be your host and commentator today. This morning promises to be as exciting as the last 3 days, with a packed swimming programme with the heats taking place this morning and the finals this evening. So far we have had 33 finals swum, and today we're about to kick off 12 events, starting shortly with the women's 100 metres individual medley. So first up this morning is the women's 100 metres individual medley. There are 4 heats, and in the first heat we have swimmers from Mallorca, Western Isles, Greenland and the Falkland Islands. And in the 100 metres individual medley, swimmers swim 1 length on each stroke, starting with the butterfly, then on to backstroke, breaststroke and front crawl. And it's the swimmer from Greenland, Elias Sorensen, who's going to touch first at the turn, and she switches from backstroke onto breaststroke. And she's maintaining that lead over the swimmer in lane 4 from the Western Isles, Erin Smith. And closely followed in lane 1 by Marian Aleix Capo from Mallorca. But it's going to be the swimmer from Greenland in lane 3 who's going to touch first. And she does so in a time of 2:13.34. And the current Ireland Games record for this event is held by Ida Sandin from Gotland in a time of 62.25. And the fastest seeded heat is going to go 4th. And in that heat, the fastest swimmer will be Abigail Lacey from the Isle of Wight, and her seeded time is a 65.22, so she'll be coming up in just a moment. But before then, we'll move on to heat 2 of 4. And within this heat, the fastest steed is Asia Kent from Gibraltar in a time of 67.00, and she was the winner of the 200 metres breaststroke earlier this week. In this heat we have swimmers from Mallorca, Isle of Wight, Gibraltar, Faroe Islands, Shetland Islands and the Cayman Islands. And it looks to be the swimmer in lane 5, Jasmine Smith from the Shetland Islands, closely followed by the swimmer from Faroe Islands and also the swimmer in lane 2. Eileen Wolverine from Ireland, but expect Asia Kent, should I say, from Gibraltar to come through on the breaststroke leg and pull level. And all 4 swimmers are in a line leading onto the front crawl. But it's Jasmine Smith in lane 5 from the Shetland Islands, holding the lead on the front crawl, holding her breath for the finish, finishing on a full stroke, and she touches first in a 68.36. Second was Grace Pointer and third was Asia Kent from Gibraltar. Forgive me, I got those 2 swimmers mixed up. In fact, it was Asia Kent who was second and Grace Pointer who was third in a 69.15. We'll go move on into heat 3. And the fastest seed in this heat is Laura Keenley from the Isle of Man with an entry time of a 65.65. All swimmers cleaning away on heat 3, and it is Laura Keenley who's out first, and beside her is Laura Lacroix in lane 4 from Guernsey. As Laura Lacroix in lane 4, who touches first on the butterfly leg, moving on to the backstroke. And she uses all 10 metres underwater. She could go 15 metres if she chooses, but she chooses not to. She came up at 10 metres into her swimming stroke, and she's going to touch first at the 50 metres, moving from backstroke to breaststroke, closely followed by Laura Keenly. And in lane 2, Ellen Wolverine from Holland. So that's Laura Keenly and Laura Lacroix touching first with 75 and 25 left to swim. Looks to be the swimmer from the Isle of Man who's going to take the touch with 5 metres left to go. And Laura Keenly 66.54, followed by Laura Lacroix in the 67. And Ellen Wolverine from Holland in a 68.13. We're coming up to the 4th and final heat now for the women's 100 metres individual medley, with fastest seed being Abigail Lacey from the Isle of Wight going in lane 3 with an entry time of 65.22. Also swimming in this heat are swimmers from Guernsey. In fact, it's Jemima Green, who turned 17 yesterday. Also swimmers from the Isle of Man, Jersey, Åland, and also the Cayman Islands in lane 6. But it's the swimmer in lane 4, Megan Hansford from Jersey, who touches first on the butterfly to backstroke turn. But it is in fact Abigail Lacey who is using the underwater work to her advantage, and it's these 3 swimmers in lanes 3, 4 and 5, closely followed by Jemima Green in lane 1, who touches first at the 50 metre mark. The Isle of Wight swimmer was able to get away from the others on that turn. That's Abigail Lacey moving forward on the breaststroke and extending her lead, and touches first at the 75 with 25 left to swim. And there's a race for second and third between 3 swimmers, swimmer from Jersey, Guernsey and also the Isle of Man, but it'll be the swimmer from the Isle of Wight, Abigail Lacey, who's going to touch first. In time of 66.47, followed by the Jersey swimmer, the Åland swimmer and also the swimmer from Guernsey. So it's Megan Hansford in second, Jenny Eck from Åland and Jemima Green in 4th. Then the swimmer from the Cayman Islands and Kira Price from the Isle of Man in 6th with a time of 1:12.59. And we're going to move on to a new event, and that event will be the men's 400 metres freestyle. And in this we have 4 heats, and the current record stands at 3:45.87, set by Pal Johansson from the Faroe Islands, and that was set in 2009, which is actually the same year that he won the Sports Person of the Year in the Faroe Islands. And then following on from that, a couple of years later, he swam for Denmark in the Olympic Games and came 10th in this event in the 400 metres freestyle in London. And in the first heat we have swimmers from Gozo, Western Isles, Mallorca, St. Helena. So heat 1 is underway. Ali McFarlane in lane 2 in the blue hat is swimming from the Western Isles. And beside him is David Simon Pons from Mallorca. Then William Caswell from St Helena and Stefan Thomas for St Helena. And they're the first 4 turning over. And all 3 split a 30 point for the first 50 metres. These swimmers all have entry times ranging between 4:42 and 4:52, so they're within 10 seconds of each other over this distance. So all 3 swimmers were out on a 30 point. Let's see whether or not they can maintain it. It's likely they'll be a little bit slower. They're now repping on to 33s. So these swimmers, and the swimmer in particular from Mallorca, is out on a 63 point. So we'll see what he can maintain in terms of his pace over the next 300 metres. So it's been 4 years since the normally biannual event, the Island Games, was held in Gibraltar, and this year for the 19th edition of the Games we have over 160 competitors from 18 islands swimming in the pool this week. And as I'm just mentioning that, I can see that David from Mallorca is starting to extend his lead over the other 3 swimmers. And once he turns here, he'll be moving on to the next lap, and at the end of this lap he'll be approaching halfway. So first of all, he was out on a 63. He's now splitting a 2:12 for the 200 metres. So he's started off at a 63 pace, moving now onto a 69 pace. So I would expect David to maintain that pace, 69 pace, going through to 300. So really we'd be looking then at 3:21 pace. And if he's able to maintain that all the way through to the 400, then we'll be looking at a 4:40 pace. And his entry time is a 4:42, so he's certainly tracking inside that entry time. And you can see there, he turns, goes underwater to 5 meters, then pops up and starts swimming. And he's using a nice long stroke, which is good high elbow, and using his feet, just drifting with a 2-beat kick behind him just to keep them on the water surface, and indeed he does. He splits a 3:21 for 300 meters, and he's got just over 75 meters left to swim in this first heat of the men's 400 meters front crawl. So David from Mallorca is coming up with 50 metres left to swim, 2 lengths to go. Swimmers on the 400 freestyle in the short course pool swim 16 lengths, and he's realised he's got 50 left to go, so he's engaging his leg kick. We can definitely see a change in his technique there and his coordination. On the previous laps he was just letting his legs just drift behind him, just having a nice steady kick to save energy, but now with 15 metres left to swim, he's kicking nice and hard, engaging a 6-beat leg kick, and really trying to sprint through with 5 metres left to go. And there we are. So David Simon Pons from Mallorca finishes in a 4:29, and that's much quicker than his entry time of 4:42. And then second one was William Caswell, and third was Liam McFarlane from the Western Isles. So that's 13 seconds faster than his entry time, the 15-year-old from Mallorca. And we have the swimmer from Gozo, Anthony Borg, just swimming in and touches in 6th place in a time of 5:15.33. Next up will be Heat 2. And in Heat 2, the fastest seed is Rosen Martin from the Isle of Wight on a time of 4:30.1. And beside him is Ross Yates from Guernsey, the 40-year-old, who came out of retirement to make this Island Games and has already swum. And he swum the 200 butterfly, he swum the 800 freestyle last night, and today he goes in the 400 meters freestyle. Also in this heat are swimmers from Menorca, the Isle of Man, the Isle of Wight, Shetland Isles and Orkney. So Martin Rosen goes in lane 3 for the Isle of Wight in the second heat of the men's 400 meters freestyle. And the swimmers are cleanly away, and it's the swimmer in lane 2, Zachary Bellhouse from the Isle of Man, who takes an early lead of the start. But as swimmers swim 16 lengths, it's not just about what swimmers do on the 15 meters. On the start, it's how they are able to pace themselves over the entire duration of the race. And going with him in lane 3 is Rosen Martin from the Isle of Wight, and these two swimmers turn together in a time of 28.9 and 29.04. And it's Rosen Martin who's now taking the lead. The swimmer from the Isle of Man, and he turns first in a 60.97. And you can see in the picture that both these swimmers are breathing every 2 to the left. As they come up towards the 150 mark, and in the shot also is Ross Yates, and Ross Yates seems to be catching the swimmer who set out the early lead, Zachary Bellhouse from the Isle of Man, as these 3 swimmers in this heat of the 400 freestyle. But Rosen Martin from the Isle of Wight is swimming away from the others. And his entry time was a 4:30.1. And he's going to be coming up to halfway in just a moment with 4 meters left to go to the turn. And he turns in on a 2:05.8. So if Martin is able to negative split this race, he's going to be looking at a time of around about 4:11. Which is going to be about 20 seconds inside his entry time. So we'll see whether or not he's gone out too fast, or whether he's going to be able to hold this pace all the way through the next 150 meters. So 6 lengths left to swim. And in the shot, Ross Yates has overtaken the early leader, Zachary Bellhouse from the Isle of Man, into second place, and he turns in 2:46.50. There's Rosen Martin from the Isle of Wight. With a 12-meter lead over second place, Ross Yates, coming up with 100 meters left to swim. And he turns in a 3:13.16. So he's out now, swimming at about a 68 pace for 100 meters. So he started on a 61, then moved on to a 64, now up to a 68 pace. So we'll see whether or not he can drop down under 68 for the last pace of the 100 meters. And he's got 2 lengths left to swim. But he's maintaining his lead over Ross Yates at about 12 meters, so these two swimmers are swimming about the same sort of speed. It's just that Rosen Martin was able to get out quicker on the first 200. And he's maintaining that. He knows he's got 50 metres left to swim. He's kicking his legs nice and hard. And is sprinting with 5 metres left to go. And he touches in a 4:19.75 with Ross Yates coming in second in a 4:26.25. And indeed, Rosen Martin was able to come back quicker. That is third 100 split, and he was able to come back on a 66 pace. And Ross Yates finishes second. His seeded time was a 4:30.15, and this morning he went a 4:26.25, so he should be pleased with that. 4 seconds inside his entry time. Next up is going to be the third heat, and we have swimmers from Gibraltar, the Isle of Man, the Faroe Islands, Jersey, Shetland Islands and Gibraltar. The third heat is underway, and the fastest seed here is Liglas Johansson from the Faroe Islands, and he has a seeded time of 4:02.05, and he's already won a gold medal this week in the very first event. So in lane 3 in the blue hat, Liglas Johansson won the men's 1500 metre freestyle on the very first evening, and beside him is Magnus Kelly in the Isle of Man in the black hat in lane 2. That's Magnus Kelly followed by Liglas Johansson. And Matthew Defanes from Jersey in lane 4, taking out the third heat in the men's 400 freestyle. So these three swimmers are separated by 8 seconds based on their seeded time, but at the moment they're tracking each other, and there's only going to be a few 100ths between them as they turn here, and indeed yes, only 4 100ths of a second separate the top 3 places, all turning on a 58 point. These swimmers are swimming for a place in the final, so in the final you have 6 lanes, and the fastest 6 from this morning's heat will make up those 6 lanes. And the way it works is the fastest in the heat is seated in the middle of the pool, and then the pool lanes are filled in sequential order. So second would be in lane 4, third would be in lane 2, and so through from lanes 5, lanes 1, lane 6, such the final is spearheaded. Spearheaded just means that the swimmer in lane 3 is the fastest seed and is expected to go out the quickest, but here it's actually Matthew Defanes in lane 4. He's going to turn first at the 200 metre mark, and he turns in a 2:01.6, closely followed by the swimmer from the Faroe Islands and Magnus Kelly, who took the early lead from the Isle of Man on the 100. So these swimmers now are all wrapping around about 62, 63 pace for the 100 metres. And it's Liglas Johansson who's starting to close the gap between him and the swimmer from Jersey. And these two have started to drop the swimmer from the Isle of Man, Magnus Kelly. So this will be between Jersey and the Faroe Isles, with 100 metres left to swim. So both turning around about 3:04. So yep, these two swimmers are pacing at a 63 pace per 100 metres, and you'd expect them to come back quicker than that in the last 100. So as they come up towards the next turn, or even just after, you'll see a change in their technique where they will start kicking the legs a little bit harder and maybe trying to turn their arms over a little bit quicker. And indeed it looks like Niklas Johansson has started to do that leading into the turn. And these two will start to race each other down the length, where they're going to have 25 meters or so left to swim. And there is the change of technique from Niklas Johansson. The technique necessarily doesn't change, it just gets a little bit quicker and more effort being expended to sprint down the length and get the touch over his rival from Jersey. Niklas Johansson finishes first in a 4:04 for the win of the third heat, and indeed he was able to come back there on a 60 point for the last 100 meters. Second was Matthew Defanes, coming back on a 61. And after that, it was a swimmer from the Isle of Man who took the early lead, Magnus Kelly, coming in third. The other swimmers, Kaylin Johnson, Jack Santos, and Christine Chang Cipollina, finishing off the remaining places. Next up is Heat 4, and this is the final heat of the men's 400 meters freestyle. And in here we have the fastest seed, Isaac Dodds from Jersey, in the red hat in lane 3.
Take your mark.
So final heat is in the water, and Isaac Dodds from Jersey, and the swimmer in lane 5, Jake Bailey from the Cayman Islands, taking out the early lead. And Isaac Dodds is swimming today in the 400 freestyle after winning the 800 freestyle yesterday, so he's dropped to half the distance after winning last night's final in the 800 freestyle. And he's got the fastest seeded time at a 3:51.49. And he's the only swimmer with a seeded time that's under 4 minutes. So as the swimmers approach the 100-meter turn, Isaac Dodds turns first in a 57.19, followed closely in the line by the swimmers from the Faroe Islands, Guernsey, and the Cayman Islands. So those swimmers are Henny Moore Ashcombe, Samuel Lowe from Guernsey, and Jake Bailey from the Cayman Islands. And coming up on Isaac Dodds is a swimmer from the Faroe Islands and the swimmer from the Cayman Islands. So these three swimmers now in a line, coming up to the halfway mark. So they've got 10 meters left to swim till the 200 meters. And these swimmers are all repping under 2 minutes. So they're all split at the 200 meter mark, under 2 minutes. So it looks like all three of them will go just over the 4 minute mark for the total distance. And it's Jake Bailey and Henny Moore Ashcombe who are leading out. Isaac Dodds is just tracking them quite closely. And yesterday in the 800 freestyle, Isaac Dodds was able to come back on the last 200 in just over 2 minutes, which means he's able to rep 100 pace at 60 point on the back half of a race, so he's definitely got the ability to chase the others down with 100 metres left to go. But he may well be saving him for this evening's final, as all three swimmers turn in a 3:03. So that's a second quicker than the swimmers in the previous heat, who finished on a 4:04 and a 4:05 respectively. So there we can see a change in technique from Isaac Dodds. He's decided to put a bit more effort in than he was doing previously to move into the lead with 50 metres left to go. So we can see there he's really engaging his feet, kicking very strongly and taking the lead over the swimmer from the Faroe Isles, very similar to what he did last night in the 800 freestyle, where he took the lead away from this other swimmer from the Faroe Islands. That was Lilas Johansson. And Isaac Dodds is coming up with 5 metres left to swim and touches first in a 4:03.20, followed by Jake Bailey and Henny Askham, with Samuel Lowe finishing next in a 4:17.34. And Benjamin van der Helstred from the Isle of Wight. And one more swimmer coming in with 5 metres left to go, Benjamin Wireless from Gotland. So first in the final heat was Isaac Dodds, next was Henny Askham, and third place Jake Bailey from the Cayman Islands. Next up is the women's 200 metres butterfly, with the record being held by Charlotte Atkinson from the Isle of Man, set in 2015 in a time of 2:09.37. And in this heat we have swimmers from the Shetland Isles, the Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, and also a second swimmer from the Shetland Islands. So the fastest seed in this heat is Oriana Wheeler from Guernsey. She's ranked second overall in the entry times for this event, after previously winning earlier this week the 400 metres individual medley. So Oriana takes an early lead there, out on a 29.84. Followed by the swimmer in lane 4, Clara Guinness, and then Robin Douglas from the Isle of Man in lane 2. So for the 200 butterfly, swimmers have to swim 8 lengths butterfly. And we can see there the butterfly stroke from Oriana Wheeler. You have a symmetrical overarm recovery. And then under the water, what the swimmers will use is what's called a keyhole underwater pull. So swimmers pull down, out, in, and then back towards their hips, and then recover their arms over the water, over the side, and repeat the arm action again. And within that arm action, they're able to undulate. And within the undulation, they're able to kick twice typically, once as the hands enter the water and once as the hands exit the water. And within all that timing, they're able to get their breathing action in as well. So Oriana there is switching between either breathing every stroke or breathing every other stroke. It's quite common on a 200 butterfly to breathe every stroke, whereas as you drop the distance through 100 and into 50, you typically see swimmers breathing less as they go, and indeed over the 50 some swimmers might not breathe at all over the entire distance. Oriana now has the last 25 metres to swim, and she's leading over the swimmer from Jersey, Clara Guinness, and Robin Douglas from the Isle of Man, currently in third. And Oriana's going to touch first in around about, I was going to say 2:20, but she touches in a 2:19 point. And second place is Clara Guinness in a 2:26, and third will be Robin Douglas. in a time of 2:36.93. And Oriana Wheeler's time, her entry time was a 2:20. She's got a 2:19, so it looks like she's dropped just a second or so underneath her best time, with a time of 2:19.9, and the two Shetland Island swimmers making up 4th and 5th as we move on to the second heat of this event, with the fastest seed being Orla Raby from Guernsey going in lane 3 on a time of 2:18.15. And Orla Raby's already won the other butterfly events this week. She's won the 50 metres and the 100 metres, so she'll be going for the treble tonight if she makes the final. So swimmers from the Isle of Wight, the Cayman Islands, Guernsey, the Faroe Islands, Mallorca and the Western Isles all swimming in this heat. And leading out is Orla Raby in lane 3 from Guernsey, followed closely by the swimmer from the Faroe Islands, Johanna Olavsdottir. And in third, it's between the two swimmers, one from the Cayman Islands, Alison Belafont, and Bianca Pons-Delavici from Mallorca. So it's Orla Raby out on a 30.46 for the first 50 metres. And she's extending that lead through to the 75 metres. Slight glide there from Orla leading into that third turn. So typically on the butterfly, swimmers try to adjust their technique such that they finish on a full stroke, so they don't have to glide in. If they have to glide in, they generally lose a little bit of momentum. Slow in towards the turn, and then they have to try and generate that speed back out as they turn and push off. But the turn there for Orla Raby at the 100 metres was spot on, so swimmers want to try and finish on a full stroke before the turn and the finish on butterfly, and you typically see the same on breaststroke. So Orla's holding that lead over the swimmer from the Faroe Isles, Johanna Olavsdottir, in second place. And that lead's being held at about 5 metres. And Orla's coming in to swim with 50 metres left to go. And another slight drift into the turn there for Orla on that turn. But she's maintaining her lead. With 1 length left to go. And up she comes with 15 metres left to go. It's going to be Orla Raby who takes this second and final heat in a time of 2:20.15, followed by Johanna Olavsdottir in a 2:23, and then the swimmer from the Cayman Islands, Alison Belafonte, in a 2:30 in third place. But it was actually Oriana Wheeler in the heat before with a 2:19.9 who will go as fastest seed into tonight's final. So the swimmers from Guernsey, Orla Raby and Oriana Wheeler, will go as first and second seeds in tonight's final for the women's 200 metres butterfly. The next event up is the men's 100 metres backstroke, and the current record is held by Harry Shalabon from Jersey, the swimmer from Jersey Tigers, and also Loughborough University, who competed also for Jersey at the Commonwealth Games. And in 2019 at the Island Games in Gibraltar, he set a short course record here for the Island Games of 52.82 seconds. And in this next event we have 4 heats, and in the first heat we have 3 swimmers, 2 from the Falkland Islands and 1 from the Western Isles. And those swimmers will just get underway in just a moment. Once the starting wedge for the backstroke is in place and checked by the technical officials, and they are happy, and once they are happy, the next event will get underway. And this is the third time that Guernsey has hosted the Island Games, with the last time being 20 years ago in 2003 at Beausejour. And a big thank you goes out to the Guernsey Amateur Swimming Association, the Guernsey Organising Committee and the Guernsey Island Games Association, as well as all the technical officials, volunteers and Beausejour staff, for all the work that goes into hosting an event such as this. So far we've had 33 finals swum, and currently it's Jersey who top the swimming medal table, with Guernsey in second place and the Isle of Man in third. And today we have 12 events. Previously, over the last few days, we've had 11 events each, but today we have an extra event, and that extra event is the mixed 4x50 freestyle team relay. So 2 men and 2 women going together for the same nation swimming, and that's going to be the last event of this morning's session. But now that the technical officials are happy, the leader referee calls the swimmers to attention, and the next event, the men's 100-meter backstroke, is going to get underway. So the 3 swimmers are underway, and the swimmer in lane 3, Mark Morrison from the Western Isles, takes the lead, leading up to 25 metres. And beside him in lane 4 is George Lee from the Falkland Islands. As Mark Morrison over first in a 34.67. And he has 15 metres left to swim. Mark Morrison's seeded time, his entry time, is a 1:15.77. Looks like he's going to get well within that. Finishes on a full stroke. And he finishes on a 1:12.9, followed by George Lee from the Falkland Isles in a 1:18.45. With Oscar Casson, also from the Falkland Isles, coming in third place in a 1:27. So next up will be Heat 2. And in Heat 2, the fastest seed is the swimmer from Jersey, and that is Robbie Jones. And yesterday, Robbie Jones swam in the men's 100 metres individual medley final, and Robert Jones won that. So in lane 3 is Robert Jones from Jersey with a seeded time of 58.19. And like Harry Shalaman, who holds the record, he also is a swimmer of Jersey Tigers and also Loughborough University. He represented the Jersey team at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham 2022, and this is his second Island Games. Also in this heat are swimmers from Orkney, the Isle of Wight, Guernsey and Gotland. And it's the swimmer from the Isle of Wight, George Hayward, taking an early lead in lane 2, followed by Robert Jones in lane 3 and Owain Edwards from Guernsey in lane 4. And we can see slightly different styles of how they approach the race, with George Hayward turning first. And when I say a slightly different way in which to approach the race, we can see that the first two swimmers start swimming around about 10 metres. And Robert Jones uses all 14 metres under the water, using his dolphin kick under the water before he starts swimming. He's using that to great advantage to catch Owain Edwards and also to catch George Hayward, but it's going to be on the touch, and I think George Hayward just gets it. He does indeed, on a 59.85, followed by Robert Jones on a 59.9 and Owain Edwards on a 60 point. And George certainly looks pleased with that swim, because it could well be the first time he's broken the 60-second mark for the backstroke. So Owain Edwards is third from Guernsey in a 60.69. Matt Renz from Gotland, and then Alfie Price from Orkney coming in a 69.88. Next up will be Heat 3. And the fastest seed in Heat 3 is Benjamin Cable from the Isle of Man, with a seeded time of 57.78. So we've had two swimmers already break the 60-second mark, those being George Hayward and Robert Jones from Jersey. And we'd expect to see another sub-60 in this heat as well. In this heat we have swimmers from the Western Isles, two swimmers from the Isle of Man, and two swimmers from the Shetland Islands. Heat 3 is underway, and taking the early lead underwater, coming up bang on 15 metres, just before 15 metres, was Benjamin Cable from the Isle of Man. And again, coming up at 40 metres underwater, using the full extent of what he's allowed to do underwater. And he turns first in a 28.00. Followed by Jack Burgess and Robbie Thompson. You can see there from Benjamin Cable, a very good backstroke technique. Using the underwater work to his advantage, coming up at 10 metres and then up into his swimming stroke. Nice still head position, good body roll, little finger entry, hips high, and good long strong leg kick into the finish. And yes, we have a sub-60 there. 58.06 for Ben Cable, winning that third heat, with Robbie Thompson in second and Jack Burgess in third. Next will be Heat 4. That'll be the fourth and final heat of the men's 100 metres backstroke, with Tom Hollingsworth fastest seed, the 35-year-old from Guernsey, with a 57.01, and beside him will be Will Sellers from the Cayman Islands, who last night had a good tussle with Tom Hollingsworth in the 200 backstroke. Tom Hollingsworth went out first and fastest all the way up to the 150 mark, and then Will Sellers managed to pace the race extremely well by overtaking the Guernseyman with 40 metres left to swim, and then managed to swim away from Tom Hollingsworth to take the win in the 200 metres backstroke. But this is half the distance, and this heat, the fourth and final heat, will take place in just a moment.
Take your marks.
So it's Tom Hollingsworth and Will Sellers, the two swimmers in the middle, lane 3 and 4, who take the early lead. And both swimmers using 10 metres underwater before they start swimming backstroke. And both over together in a 28.2 and a 28.3. What these swimmers will aim to do is also dip under the 60 mark, so they know that they'll be safe for a place in tonight's final. So far we've had 3 swimmers under the 60 seconds, and it looks like Tom Hollingsworth, followed by Will Sellers, will take the touch in this 4th and final heat. Yes, both swimmers touch, one on a 58.2 and one in on a 58.6. So that's the 4th and final heat for the men's 100 backstroke, with Tom Hollingsworth taking the lead, followed by Will Sellers and then Luke Fleming in a 61.38, with Liglas Johansson and Alex Gomez Carreras from Mallorca coming in a 110.17. So swimmers will just be asked to exit the water before the start of the next event. The next event is the women's 100 meters freestyle. And we have 4 heats in this event, with the current record set at 56.25, set in 2019 by the Orland swimmer Olivia Uero. And we have one swimmer, Alison Jackson, whose seed time is very close to that. So her seeded time is a 56.25. Sorry, that's the record. The record is 56.25. The seeded time for Alison Jackson is a 56.48. And after that we have a number of swimmers on 57s and 58s. So in this heat we have swimmers from the Falkland Islands, St Helena and Åland, with the fastest seed being Wilma Danielson in a time of 66.82, and she swims in lane 3. But it's the swimmer beside her in lane 4, country lady from Åland, Selma Nordberg, who's taking the lead at the 50. And turns in the time of 30.75. And indeed, it's Selma Nordberg from Ireland who's maintaining that lead. She's going to take the win in a 63.68, so that's 3 seconds inside her seeded time. And second was Wilma Danielson, also of Åland. And then Vivian Ponsford from St Helena, with the 2 swimmers from the Falkland Islands coming in after that, with Zoe Clement finishing in a time of 120.29.
So heat number 2 and 4 in this event 38. We're ready to go. Our referees set time 2:09.
Next up is heat 2. And in this heat we have swimmers from Mallorca, Isle of Wight, Jersey, Guernsey, the Shetland Islands and Mallorca. And the fastest seed is Gemma Atherley from Jersey in lane 3. And she takes the early lead in the red hat, closely followed by the Guernsey swimmer Molly Staples in lane 4 and Nell O'Brien from the Isle of Wight in lane 2. But it's Gemma Atherley turning first in a 27.54, with Molly Staples in second place. So they've all got 25 metres left to swim in the top 3, with Gemma Atherley holding that lead that she made on the first 50. And finishes with her head down, touches on a full stroke, and finishes in a time of 57. With Molly Staples second and Nell O'Brien in third. And Hutchinson is in fourth, and then the two swimmers from Mallorca in fifth and sixth, with Mar Pons Torres finishing in a time of 67.80. Heat 3 is up next, with the fastest seed being Alicia Beck Vestergaard from the Faroe Islands, with a seeded time of 57.27. She goes in lane 3 with the blue cap. Heat 3 is away, and we have swimmers from the Isle of Man, Cayman Islands, Faroe Islands, Orkney, and the Isle of Wight. And it's the swimmers in the middle of the pool in lanes 2, 3, and 4 who turn in a line at the 25-metre mark. With Lucia Vestergaard maybe taking the lead, coming up to the 50, and she turns first in a 28.45. Followed by Eve Wood from Orkney. Also up there is Sarah Jackson from the Cayman Islands. And all these three swimmers have seeded times quicker than 60 seconds. And it's going to be Alicia Beck Vestergaard from the Faroe Islands in the blue cap, who's going to look to win this event, closely followed by the swimmer from the Cayman Islands, Sarah Jackson, in lane 2. And Alicia Vestergaard from the Faroe Islands touches in a 59.01, followed by Sarah Jackson, also in a sub 60 time, followed by Eve Wood from Orkney. After that we have Lucy Isaacson, Chloe Batty, and Gemma Clapham. Jenna finishing in a 65.15 from Orkney. The fourth and final heat is up next, with the fastest seed being from the Cayman Islands, and that's Alison Jackson, the 20-year-old, who has a seeded time of 56.48. Also in this heat are swimmers from the Shetland Islands, Guernsey, Jersey, Gibraltar, and the Western Isles. But it looks to be Alison Jackson from the Cayman Islands who's going to take an early lead into the first 25-metre turn. So she tumbles over, very strong leg kick coming out of the turn there. And then moves on to using her arms, but she's closely followed by the swimmer from Jersey, Megan Hansford. And then in lane 2, Ailish Raby. Her sister's already swum today in the 200-metre butterfly. So it's Ailish's turn, and she's starting to catch the swimmer from the Cayman Islands and also catch Megan Hansford from Jersey. So it's going to be these three swimmers looking to take first, second and third in this fourth and final heat to take a place in tonight's final. It's Alison Jackson swimming away from the others with 4 metres left to swim. And she touches first in the 57.57, followed by Megan Hansford and then Ailish Raby. Ailish just getting under the 60-second barrier there. And then we have the other swimmers making up the remaining places. So Rachel Sanders, Erin Smith and Bethany Irvine, with Bethany finishing in a 64.93 from the Shetland Islands. Next will be the men's 50 metres freestyle, and the current record for the 50 freestyle stands at a 21.73 from Brett Fraser from the Cayman Islands. And Brett Fraser also swam for the Cayman Islands in the 2008 and 2012 Olympic Games. And in this first heat we have 3 swimmers, 2 from the Falkland Islands and 1 from Inishmon. on the first heat, and it's heat 1 of 6 is underway with a swimmer from Inishmon, Elliot McCarrick, taking the early lead from the 2 swimmers from the Falkland Islands. So based on the entry times, these 3 swimmers will be looking to try to make sub 30. So Elliot McCarrick is seeded on a 30.83. So these swimmers have 5 meters left to swim. And he's just outside that 30-second barrier, 30.09 for Elliot McCarrick from Inishmon, with Oscar and George from the Falkland Islands finishing in 2nd and 3rd. In the next heat, heat 2, we have 4 swimmers, 1 from the Western Isles, 1 from Inishmon, and 2 from Åland. With the fastest seed being Huon Jones from Inishmon, and a seeded time of 27.85.
On we go to heat number 2. And scorecards are ready to go. The referee, over to you.
Take your marks.
Heat 2 is underway.
The Western Isles, Mark Morrison. Lane 3 for Inishmon, Owen Jones. Lane 4 for Åland is Hugo Mirren. And lane number 5 for Åland.
And 4 of these swimmers are in a line. That swimmer's in lane 3, 4 and 5. And it looks to be the swimmer in lane 4, Hugo Mirren from the Åland, who's going to take the touch. And he does in a 26.88. So in the 50 freestyle, all the elements are important. It's a very quick race, and if we think of the start, typically that's denoted by 15 meters, and that's about 30% of the distance that's required in the 50. And if you think of the turn, that's typically denoted by the 5 meters approaching the wall and 10 meters after the wall. That also accounts for about 30% of the race. And the finish, the last 5 meters, is 10% of the race. So really, if you break the race up into sections, the start, the turn, and actually the swimming pace is actually all equitable in terms of the percentages.
Take your marks.
Heat 3 is underway, and we have 6 swimmers, 2 from Orkney, 2 from Mallorca, and 2 from St Helena. And it's the swimmer in lane 4 from Mallorca who looks to be taking the lead. And it is indeed. And he takes the touch in a 26.04. So I mentioned earlier on the 200 meters butterfly about breathing patterns, and swimmers breathing every stroke on butterfly and reducing the number of times they breathe on the 100, and then maybe not breathing at all on the 50. And you'll see the same again here for the men's 50 meters freestyle. A lot of these swimmers from now on won't be looking to breathe. They might take 1 breath on the first length, 1 breath on the second length, but that might be about it. So heat 4 is next. With the fastest seeded fastest seeded swimmer, Roland Toftrum from the Faroe Islands, going in lane 3.
Take your marks.
That was a quick start there in lane 1, but it looks to be lane 2. Alexander Turnbull from the Isle of Man taking out the early lead, closely followed by the swimmer in lane 4, which is George Story. And it's going to be George Story from Jersey in the red hat in lane 4, going to take the touch. And he does in a 23.85. That's 3/100ths of a second faster than his entry or seeded time. So George Story from Jersey finishes there in a 23.85, followed by Alexander Turnbull in a 24.12, and then Roland Toftrung from the Faroe Islands in a 24.87. With Joe Carter, and then the swimmers from the Gibraltar and the Western Isles in 5th and 6th. Moving on, we have Heat 5, and we have 6 swimmers, with the fastest seed being Thomas Ferguson from the Cayman Islands going in lane 3, with a seeded time of 23.26. Beside him is Joe Carter from the Isle of Wight, and on his other side is Johnny Beck from Guernsey in lane 2. Heat 5 is underway. We have swimmers from the Shetland Islands, Guernsey, Cayman Islands, Isle of Wight, and also Gotland. And we have 2 swimmers from Guernsey here. It's Charlie Joe Halliot and Johnny Beck. But it looks to be swimmer in lane 3, Thomas Ferguson from the Cayman Islands, who is leading the way, closely followed by Johnny Beck. And Charlie Joe Halliot in lane 5 from Guernsey. And it looks to be that Charlie Joe is going to get the touch in a 20.39. Followed by his countryman Jonathan Beck in a 24.53. After that we have Thomas Ferguson and Joe Carter, with Magnus Bullock and Robin Sinderquist in 5th and 6th. Next we will have Heat 6, and this will be the final heat of the men's 50 metre freestyle. And going fastest in this heat is Joel Waterson from the Isle of Man. Yesterday, Joel won the 100 metres freestyle, and he won it in a 50.01, just on the other side of the 50-second barrier. And today, on the 50, his seeded time is a 22.30. And beside him is the swimmer from the Faroe Islands, Bertil Erdedsgaard, and his other side, Oliver Bro from Jersey in the red hat going in lane 2.
Take your marks.
Swimmers are away, and already in lane 3 the swimmer from the Isle of Man, Joel Waterson, takes an early lead, closely followed by the swimmer in lane 2, Oliver Bro from Jersey, and also Bertil Erdedsgaard from the Faroe Islands. But Joel Waterson coming into the finish in a touch with a 23.54, followed by Oliver Bro from Jersey in a 23.81, and Bertil Erdedsgaard from the Faroe Islands in a 23.88. After that we have the swimmer from the Cayman Islands, Gibraltar and Gotland, with Matt Renz coming in 6th with a 26.87. And we're going to move from one sprint event to the next sprint event. So we're moving from the men's 50 metres freestyle through to the women's 50 metre backstroke. The current record is set by Catherine Offer from the Western Isles, with a record set in 2017 of 26.64. And we have 4 heats in this event, with the first heat containing 4 swimmers, 2 from the Falkland Islands and 2 from the Western Isles. And as we just wait for the technical officials to make sure that the starting wedges are in place, the starting wedges allow the swimmers to have some purchase on the wall. So they place their toes and the balls of their feet just on the wedge. It's angled at about 10 degrees. So it gives them a little bit of purchase on the vertical wall, so when they push off, their feet don't slip down the wall. It allows them to get up and over the water, going backwards in a backwards dive, and enter the water in a nice streamlined shape. So the more streamlined shape you experience and are able to create, the less form drag or pressure drag you experience as you're swimming through the water. And if you can minimize the amount of resistance that you can experience as you swim, that's a good thing. Swimming's all about maximizing propulsion, and minimizing resistance. And typically you generate on backstroke and front crawl most of your propulsion from your arms. In the butterfly and the breaststroke events, it's a little bit more evenly split between the arms and the legs. But in terms of resistance, swimmers want to reduce the amount of form drag or pressure drag they experience by being as streamlined as possible. And really, if you think of a pencil shape, where you've got your arms extended over your head, your elbows locked, and your ears tightly pressed between your biceps, and your hands clasped over each other, and you've got a nice straight shape. That's the type of streamlined shape we want to see when we're swimming, particularly off the starts and turns.
Take your mark.
Quick start there in lane 3. And we have 4 swimmers here. 2 from the Falkland Islands, 2 from the Western Islands. And in lane 3 we have Ciara McDonald, past the seed. And indeed it's lanes 3 and 4, the 2 swimmers from the Western Isles, leading out the other 2 swimmers, with the swimmer in lane 4, Aaron Smith, with a seeded time of 35.28, leading this first heat. And she touches first in a 33.99, which is nearly a second and a half faster than her seeded time.
Thank you, swimmers. Clear the pool.
Second was Ciara McDonald, third was Nell Ford, and fourth was Zoe Clement in a 44.56. Next up will be heat 2 of 4. And in this heat we start to see the cyclically seeded heats, and the swimmers who are seeded high up in the time. So what that means is we actually have the third fastest swimmer over the whole event going next, and she's the fastest seed in this heat, with 2 more heats to go after this, and that's Gemma Atherley from Jersey going in lane 3, and she has a seeded time of 29.24, and on either side of her is a swimmer from Guernsey, Laura Lacroix, and a swimmer from the Cayman Islands, Sarah Jackson.
Take your marks.
And the swimmers are away, up and over and backwards into the water, and it's Gemma Atherley and Laura Lacroix leading off the start, but it's Gemma Atherley from Jersey touching and turning first at the 25 meters, and using the underwater work to get her up and in front of the other swimmers, and is extending her lead to a body length, and finishes on a stroke in a 29.37, followed by Sarah Jackson and then Laura Lacroix from Guernsey in third.
Thank you, swimmers. Clear the pool, please.
Rona Anderson, Leah Osberg Holstead and Mariona Aleix Capo from Mallorca make up the remaining places, with Mariona finishing in 33.88. Next will be heat 3, and we have swimmers from the Isle of Wight, Åland, Faroe Islands, Orkney, Cayman Islands and Greenland, all swimming in this heat, with the swimmer from the Faroe Islands, Elizabeth Errolsdottir, being the fastest seed going in lane 3 with the blue cap. And then on the other side of her in lane 4 is Eve Wood from Orkney, and in lane 2 Jenny Ike from Åland going in the black cap. Heat 3 is underway. The swimmers break at around about 13 meters, so they break the water surface around about 13 meters, and it's Elizabeth Errolsdottir from The Faroe Isles taking the lead, moving from her turn into her underwater work and then to her swimming stroke. And she's got a very nice head position, nice and high and still. And she finishes first in a 29.24, followed by Eve Wood and then Jenny Eck from Åland in third.
Thank you, swimmers. Please clear the pool.
With Mia Stillwell, Veronica Frankina and Matilda Markinson from Greenland in sixth. Next will be the fourth and final heat, and we have swimmers from the Isle of Man, Shetland Islands, Guernsey, Jersey and Åland, with two swimmers swimming for the Isle of Man, those being Elizabeth Curfey and Robin Douglas. Fastest seed is Tatiana Tostovan from Guernsey with an entry time of 28.61, and she goes in lane 3. On her other side is Megan Hansford from Jersey in the red hat in lane 4, and then the swimmer in lane 2 from the Shetland Isles is Anne Hutchinson.
Take your mark.
Final heat is underway. Now we can see Tatiana Toston taking the lead, breaking the water surface at 13 metres underwater as she moves into her swing stroke. And we can see there that these swimmers are all using a high cadence on their arm action, so high stroke frequency or high stroke rate, it's called different things. And you probably wouldn't see that in a 200 backstroke, but you typically see a higher stroke rate as the sprint events take place. And it's Tatiana Tostovan finishing first in the 28.59, followed by Megan Hansford from Jersey in a 30.10. Ellen Wolverine from Åland in third, with swimmers from the Isle of Man and Shetland Islands taking up the remaining places. Next we'll move on to the men's 200 metres breaststroke. And we have 4 heats. And the current Island Games record is set by Paul Johansson from the Faroe Islands. So Paul Johansson, not only known for distance front crawl, 1500 metres and also 400 metres, he also holds the Island Games record on the 200 breaststroke, and that is set at 2:14.82 from 2015.
On we go, that's number 41 then, that's the men's 200 metre breaststroke. We have 4 heats in this, 3 coming ready to turn now, and then another 3. And then we have the men's 42, which is the
In the first heat, we have swimmers from Western Isles, Shetland Islands and Orkney.
Anyway, let's get on with this one. Event number 41, heat number 1, over here, Madam Referee.
Take your mark.
First heat is underway,
So heat 1 out of 4 in this event, 41.
and a swimmer from the Shetland Isles is first up at 15 metres, and that's Magnus Buller. And within this heat we also have Liam McFarlane from the Western Isles and Jack Wallace from Orkney. And in 2 years' time, the next Island Games is held in Orkney in 2025, and for the swimming event, that's going to be held at Picacoy Leisure Centre in Kirkwall, which is the main town in Orkney. And the leisure centre, very similar to Beausejour, or Bosey as it's referred to locally. In Orkney it's referred to as the Picky Centre, and that pool is also a 6-lane 25-metre pool with a movable floor. So that means that the depth of the pool can be changed, so they'll have the floor pool at 2 metres with a changing village and also the same Swiss timing system as is here at Beausejour. And at the Piquecoy Leisure Centre, the sports centre will host not just the swimming but also the athletics, the archery, the badminton and the squash. So if there's any more information anybody wants to know about the next upcoming Ireland Games in Orkney in 2025, feel free to visit the Orkney2025.com website for more information. And as we move through this next heat, we can see that the swimmer from the Shetland Islands, Magnus Buller, is extending his lead in lane 3, followed by the swimmer from Orkney, and then the swimmer from the Western Isles is in 3rd. Magnus Bullock pulling away from the other swimmers on the 200 breaststroke. He has an entry time of 2:42.09. And with 15 meters left to swim, it looks like he will finish inside that. And he does. He touches in a 2:35.78 with the swimmer from Orkney touching in 2nd, Jack Wallace, and Liam McFarlane in 3rd. Next will be Heat 2, and in Heat 2 we have 5 swimmers, and they are from the Cayman Islands, the Isle of Wight, Guernsey, Faroe Islands and also the Isle of Man. And fastest seed is Ronnie Hallett from Guernsey in a 2:15.43, and Ronnie's already won some events this week. So he won the 100 meters against his brother Charlie Joe, who came 2nd, and that was reversed in the 50 where Ronnie came in 2nd, and looks like Ronnie's now going for a place in the final for the 200 breaststroke.
Take your marks.
Heat 2 is underway, and it is Ronnie Hallett who is taking a lead, a short lead off the 15-meter start as he comes into the 25-meter turn, touching first, followed by Bartol Eridsgaard from the Faroe Islands and William Davidson from the Isle of Wight. So it's these 3 swimmers taking an early lead, with Ronnie Hallett touching at the 50 in a 30.38. So across the 4 strokes we have 2 asymmetrical strokes. They're typically known as backstroke and front crawl, and 2 symmetrical strokes. They are the breaststroke and the butterfly. So on the breaststroke we can see there that the swimmers pull their arms wide and then in towards their body before thrusting them forward into a streamlined shape. Once they're in the streamlined shape, swimmers will want to kick their legs and get propulsion from their legs by bringing them up with the feet up towards their bum, and then basically exploding, kicking backwards with their soles of the feet pressing back across the water to generate propulsion going forward. And as they do that, they go into a streamlined shape at the front, and as the swimmer pulls their arms inwards so their elbows touch their rib cage, they go upwards, take a breath and then move forward. And we can see there with Ronnie, that's the technique that he's using. And underwater, swimmers can use a 1 pull, 1 kick, and typically have a glide, and within that section they can have 1 dolphin kick as well, and they can choose where they want to place that within the underwater work. But it's Ronnie Hallett leading at the moment with 25 meters left to swim, followed by Bertil Erlings Eilertsgaard from the Faroe Isles in 2nd. And Ronnie's managed to keep his stroke nice and long. Typically on a 200 breaststroke, you want to have a nice distance per stroke, whereas on the 50, it tends to be a little bit higher tempo, and maybe a little bit shorter. And Ronnie finishes on a 2:19 to touch first in this second heat of the men's 200 meters breaststroke, followed by Bertel Erlings Edersgaard and William Davidson from the Isle of Wight. And then in the frame is Zachary Belhouse from the Isle of Man, with Aidan van der Toer from the Cayman Islands coming in fifth. Next will be Heat 3. And in Heat 3 we have 2 swimmers from Greenland, 2 swimmers from Jersey, 1 swimmer from the Shetland Islands and 1 swimmer from Orkney. And the fastest seed in this next heat is Robert Jones, or Robbie Jones from Jersey. He'll go in lane 3 with the red cap, and his seeded time is 2:15.37. And beside him is going to be Thomas Defanes, also from Jersey, and Sisu Peterson from Greenland in lane 2.
The time in between the individuals and the relays will be 10 minutes, alright? And then there will be another 10-minute gap between the normal relay at 44 and the mixed relay at 45. So that's 10 minutes break after this event 42, or this next event 42, and then a 10-minute break between the normal relays, the women's relay, and the men's relay. Right, Madam Referee, we are ready to go.
Take your mark.
Heat 3 is underway with fastest seed Robbie Jones from Jersey in lane 3, taking the lead with his countryman in lane 4. That's Thomas Defanes from Jersey, and Robert Jones has already swum this morning. Indeed, he swam this morning in the 100 meters backstroke. So he switched strokes from backstroke to the 100 meters and is now doubling the distance and is now swimming breaststroke in lane 3. And he touches first in a 31.95, followed by Thomas Defanes from Jersey in lane 4. We can see that these 2 swimmers are using that long pull, kick, glide technique that you typically associated with a 200 breaststroke. Where you have a little bit of a pause once you're in that glide phase before you start your next stroke, and that's really for swimmers to help their rhythm, help their timing, but also conserve energy throughout the duration of the race. What swimmers are able to do over the course of a 200 is use this pull, kick and glide technique for the first 150, and then switch their technique and their coordination and move it more to a technique that would resemble a 100 breaststroke swimming technique. So they increase their frequency, and what I mean by that is they increase their stroke rate, they start to turn their arms over quicker, and they have less out of pause at the front of the stroke. What that does mean is, though, they take more strokes per length, so by changing their coordination they also have to be practiced at being able to do that, so they're still able to finish on a turn and finish on a full stroke. But these 2 swimmers are maintaining their lead and also maintaining their distance per stroke throughout the course of the 200 meters, and we have 20 meters left to swim. So the Jersey swimmers coming in 1 and 2, and I'll be on the touch, and it may well be Thomas Defanes in lane 4 who gets it in a 2:23.56, followed by Robert Jones in a 2:23.89. They are followed in 3rd place by Sisu Peterson from Greenland, with Mark Hutchinson and Gustav Jensen in 4th and 5th, and Kieran Smith coming in a 2:44.92. Next will be the fourth and final heat of the men's 200 meters breaststroke. And going fastest seed in this heat is the swimmer from Gotland, Alice Leith, on an entry time of 2:15.36. And on either side of him is Roland Tofterum from the Faroe Islands in lane 4, and another swimmer from Gotland, Jack Scherberg, in lane 2.
So off we go. Heat number 4 out of 4 in the lane number 1 for Guernsey, Luke Lecras.
Heat 4 is underway.
Jack Scherberg. Lane 3 for Gotland, Elias Klein. Lane 4, Faroe Islands, Roland Chapman. Lane 5, Western Isles.
And we can see that 4 swimmers are in the lane, in a line, lanes 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's Luke Lecras from Guernsey in lane 1, Jack Scherberg from Gotland in lane 2, Alice Leith from Gotland in lane 3, and Roland Tofterum from the Faroe Isles in lane 4. And we can see that after the first 50, leading up to 75, it's the swimmer in lane 3 who's the fastest seed, Alice Leith from Gotland, who's taking a lead. And he comes up there at 10 meters and is extending that lead to 200 meters, and he touches first in a 68.28, and he's leading the way there and is extending that lead further on from the swimmer in lane 4 from the Faroe Islands. And as I mentioned in the previous race, that we can see swimmers on a 200 breaststroke using a pull, kick and glide. So we can see the glide there, followed by the kick there and the pull there. So we have a pull, kick and glide, and we can see that Alice Leith is making full advantage of that streamlined shape when he's in that glide. So he's a pencil shape, his head's tucked in between his arms just after his leg kick and before he starts his next pull. He's got 25 left to swim. And he's maintaining that tempo and that distance per stroke. He's not increasing his frequency, he just wants to finish his race and finish on a full stroke, which he does, and finishes on a 2:21.19. He's followed by Roland Tofterum from the Faroe Islands in a 2:25, and Jack Scherberg from Gotland in a 2:29.11, with Luke Lecras in fourth in a 2:32. Fifth was Harry Pointer, and sixth with Matthew Hanlon from the Western Isles in a 2:43.16. Next up will be the women's 800 meters freestyle, and the current record stands at 8 minutes 47.98, set in 2011 by Christina Neves from Guernsey. And indeed, a year after that record was set, Christina represented Great Britain at the European Junior Championships. And we have 3 heats in this event. In the first heat we have 3 swimmers, 1 swimmer from Gozo, 1 swimmer from St Helena, and 1 swimmer from Orkney. And the 800 meter freestyle is a heat declared winner event. So there's no final. The swimmers with the fastest time on the day win the medals. So this morning, if a swimmer swims outstandingly, and this evening when the final heat is swum and that heat is won in a slower time, then the swimmer who has the fastest time from this morning wins the medal. So this morning we have 3 heats, but actually the third heat is swum this evening with the finals, and the fastest seed on this event is the swimmer who's already won a gold medal for the Cayman Islands, and that's Kyra Rabus. She won the women's 1500 meters freestyle earlier in the week, and she goes again in the women's 800 freestyle, and that will be swum, that third heat, with the finals later on this evening. So we're going to have 2 heats this morning, and after these 2 heats we'll have a 10-minute interlude, and after that 10-minute interlude we'll move into the 3 relay events for this morning.
Take your marks.
And the swimmers are away. We have a swimmer from Gozo, St. Helena and Orkney in this event. So the 800 freestyle is 32 lengths of this pool. This pool is a 25-meter pool. It's short course, or it's what referred to as short course. And in swimming you have different pool lengths. So you have the short course pool, which is 25-meter distance, the long course pool, which is 50-meter distance, and you also have another distance that isn't typically swum as much in Europe but is very much swum in America. It's the yards, so you'll have the 25-yard pool as well. So in America you have records for 25 yards pool, or short course yards, short course meters and long course meters. And in this first heat we have the swimmer from Orkney, Jenna Clapham, taking the early lead from Vivian Ponsford from St. Helena. And Jenna turns first on the 100 in a 1:12, followed by Vivian Ponsford from St. Helena in second, with Kyra Attard from Gozo in third. So earlier I talked about the symmetrical strokes, butterfly and breaststroke. Front crawl is one of the asymmetrical strokes, so that's where the arms alternate their actions and the legs alternate their actions as well. So we can see Jenna Clapham there having a high body position with her legs bubbling, kicking and bubbling away, and the kick typically is made up of 2 phases, so you typically have a downbeat and an upbeat phase, and swimmers can elect to use either a 2-beat, 4-beat or 6-beat leg kick on front crawls, and Jenna's using a 6-beat leg kick there with her feet just bubbling away underneath the water surface, and as the legs kick the arms move, so they move alternatively, so the left arm will pull as the right arm recovers and vice versa. And typically on the front crawl the propulsion comes from the arms, mostly from the arms rather than from the legs. The arm phases are pretty much described as an entry and a glide, so that's when the hand enters the water and is moved forward underneath the water surface. It catches the water and then it's pulled underneath the body towards the hip. That's typically the pull and the push phases, and then it's recovered over the water. And swimmers can use a high elbow recovery over the water, which we can see there by Jenna, or can use more of a straight arm over water recovery. But ultimately on front crawl, the phases that really count in terms of generating propulsion are the phases where they pull underneath the water and then push towards the hip. That's where the propulsion is generated, and typically the hand accelerates from being nice and smooth at the front of the stroke to being fast near the hip. That's what generates the propulsion on front crawl swimming. And the legs just kick away. They do provide a little bit of propulsion, but they also help counteract the body roll of the stroke and also aid the body roll, which in turn helps with breathing to the side. So swimmers here don't breathe to the front, they breathe to the side, and we can see there Jenna breathing to both sides using a bilateral breathing action, so that's breathing to both the left and also to the right. So propulsion is one element that swimmers want to try to maximize. Propulsion or propulsive force. It helps swimmers move forward. Ultimately what they're trying to do as they swim is try to grip the water and pull themselves beyond that point. So those people who aren't used to swimming, if you think of slipping on ice, the easiest way to try to grip ice is to have some spikes and grip your foot on the water so you don't slip. Because water is a fluid medium, it's the same principle. So what swimmers try to do is catch the water, so fix their hand in the water and move themselves past that point. If they're able to do that well, then they're being more effective than if they aren't. So that's what a lot of the technical practices that the swimmers do in training help to encourage. But that's only one element. Swimmers also want to try to reduce resistance as they're swimming. There's typically 3 types of resistance in swimming that swimmers try to minimize. One I've already talked about, which is talking about reducing form drag or pressure drag, and that's done by making sure that they're nice and streamlined as they're swimming. So they make a big shape as they travel through the water. They're trying to make the smallest shape traveling forward through the water that they can. But there's 2 other types of resistance that they typically try to reduce. One is wave drag. So wave drag is how big the wave is as they're traveling on the water surface. We want to try and reduce that, and that's typically done by having nice clean hand entry at the front end of the stroke. And then the third is friction drag. So friction drag, that's the drag between the surface of the water, or the molecules of the water, and the surface of the swimmer themselves. And that's a little bit where the swimsuits play a part. So ladies can wear swimsuits from the shoulders down to the knees, but the gentlemen can wear only fabric that goes from the hips to the knees. Gone are the days where the full body suits were in use. Those suits were banned following the 2009 World Championships that were held in Rome. And actually, if you look at the world records for those events, a lot of those records still hold, particularly the men's 200 freestyle, which was set by Paul Biedermann from Germany. In that world record has still been held since 2009, and it hasn't been broken since. And that was done in one of these rubber suits that was utilized to help streamlining. And also there was some suggestions that it would help aid buoyancy for these swimmers as well. But those suits are no longer in use, and actually only fabric suits are used these days. The other thing that swimmers typically do in their routine and to reduce friction drag is to shave down. So what that means is they shave the body hair from their legs, their arms, their back, and also their torso in preparation for meets. So when a swimmer says that they're shaved and tapered, it means they've shaved their body hair and then they've tapered for an event. Taper just means that they've reduced the volume of training that they've done leading up to a competition. Sometimes that can be 10 days out, sometimes 7, sometimes 5 days out. They reduce the volume. They might reduce some of the sessions that they're doing, so less sessions, but will keep the intensity high. So really what we're trying to do there is reduce the amount of tiredness that they have, but still are able to swim fast as they prepare for a major meet. So a number of these swimmers will be shaved and tapered for these Island Games such that they can swim to their potential. So Jenna Clapham from Orkney is still leading on this first heat of the women's 800 freestyle, and on her next turn she'll have 5 lengths remaining, so she'll be coming up towards the final 100 meters. And what you'll hear in a moment, not on this turn but in 3 turns time, is a whistle, and that whistle will indicate that she's got 50 meters left, and we may well see her go to her legs a little bit more, kick a little bit harder, such that she can finish the event nice and strongly. So Jenna Clapham coming up with 3 lengths left to go, 75 meters left to swim. She has a seeded time of 11:33.26. And with 50 meters left to swim, I think she's going to be well inside that. So there she has the whistle to indicate that she's got 2 lengths left to go. She turns with 1 length remaining, 20 meters left to swim, and yet there she goes to her legs. We can see the change in the leg kick. She's really going to her legs there to try to increase her speed, increase her frequency, and she'll finish with 2 meters left to go in a 10:24.56. And she had a seeded entry time of 11:33.26. So that's nearly 70 seconds faster than her seeded time that she entered this meet on. So she'll be pleased with that. And in second place is the swimmer coming in lane 3. There's Vivian Ponsford from St Helena in 11.12. With a swimmer from Gotland having 30 meters left to go. So as she approaches her final turn, she'll turn for home and complete the 800 meters. So Vivian Ponsford had a finish time of 11:12.50. She had a seeded time of 11:27. So again, that's a best time for her by the looks of things. As we see Hara from Gozo finishing in on an 11:54.84, and again she was quicker than her entry time as well. So all 3 swimmers swimming faster than the times that they were entered on. Next we'll go through to heat 2 of 3. So the second heat this morning, and it'll be the final heat that we will see this morning, with the fastest heat going tonight with the finals. The fastest seed is in lane 3, Maddie Russell from Guernsey, with an entry time of 9:50.73.
Take your marks.
And it's Maddie Russell already in the lead after the start at 15 metres from Guernsey, and on either side of her we have the swimmer in Gotland from Ella Ardman in lane 4, and from Mallorca, Georgina Manes Pons. But Maddie Russell has an entry time that's about 15 seconds quicker than the next seeded swimmer in this heat. So expect her to take an early lead and maintain that, and likely swim away from the other swimmers in this heat. Indeed it is, it's Maddie Russell coming up to the next 100 metre turn. And she's going to turn in a 106.29, followed by the swimmers in second and third in 69 seconds. The 800 freestyle is a heat declared winner, so these swimmers are swimming for the fastest time they can do this morning. They're not swimming for a place in a final. It is the fastest time on the day wins. So Maddie will look to swim as fast as she can this morning, not hold back. partly because she doesn't know what the other swimmers will do because they haven't gone yet, but also to give her the best chance of being able to finish with a time that may or may not medal. So what Maddie will do now, she'll swim up through to the next turn, and that will be the turn at 200 meters, a quarter of the way through the race. So she turns on a 2:19.42. So she was out on a 2:06. So she's now pacing at about 1:13 pace for her second 100 meters. She'll look to try to maintain that now for as long as possible. And if she's got anything left, then the last 100 meters she'll try to go quicker than that again. So in second place, in lane 2 we have the Mallorcan swimmer, and in third place we have the swimmer from Gotland. But it's Maddie Russell moving away from the others in lane 3. With a very rhythmical stroke, breathing every 3. Coming up to the 300 meter turn. A time of 3:33.04. And again, that's another 1:13 pace for Maddie. So the last 100 meters, she swam 1:13, same as the 100 before. So it looks like she's got into a little bit of a rhythm and a pace that she's able to maintain. So she does that. She'll be looking to touch the 400 in a time of 4:46, which will be halfway through the event. And she does. So halfway, 4:46, another 1:13 paced 100 swim. And she's moving away from the rest of the swimmers. In fact, she's starting to build a 15-meter lead over the others in this heat. With over halfway gone, less than halfway to go, and on the next turn at the deep end, she'll have 300 meters left to swim. And if she's able to maintain a 1:13 pace, she'll be turning in and around the 6-minute mark for the next turn. And she does 6:01, so she's starting to drift slightly away from that 1:13 pace, more onto a 1:14. She's swimming along, and she's got less than 300 meters to swim. So she's able to maintain her pace then. She'll be turning in the next 100-meter distance at a 7:15, so that's going to be in 50 meters time. After that turn, in 30 meters, she'll have 200 meters left to go. she is, getting encouragement from her team members. Yes, 2:7:15. So she's maintaining that pace. She's holding that 1:14 with 200 meters left to swim. Her entry time is at 9:50.73, and I know she'll be pleased to get under 9:50 if she's able to. As she comes across here, when she breathes to this side, she'll see her teammates and coaches cheering her on. You can certainly hear when you're swimming. Sometimes you can't always see when you're swimming. You are aware of what's going on, but you can't clearly see all the time, depending on what event you're doing. But Maddie's moving forward and is maintaining and extending her lead over the others, and it's now coming out to about 20 meters lead over second place swimmer in this heat. And as she comes up to this next turn, she'll have 100 meters left to swim, and she's on pace to turn here on a 8:30. She is, so she's now on a 1:15. So if she's able to come back, she's going to be able to come back quicker than a 1:15 pace. She's going to be swimming at around about 9:40. So I suspect Maddie will finish somewhere in the region of a 9:40, 9:45. For her 800 freestyle will be 5 seconds quicker than her entry time, give or take. And she's putting the extra effort in with 60 meters left to swim. And it looks like she's going to split a 1:12 on this final 100, and that'll bring her in around about an 8:42 pace, so she'll be pleased with that. As she turns for the final time with 25 meters left to swim. And here she goes, 5 meters left to go. And she finishes just under the 9:42, so 9:41.14. So she'll be pleased with that swim. That's 9 seconds quicker than her entry seeded time from Maddie Russell there from Guernsey in lane 3. And second was the swimmer in lane 2 from Mallorca, Georgina Massains Pons, in a 9:59.33. And again, that was faster than her seeded time by just over 10 seconds. And in third, Ella Ardman from Gotland finishes in on a 10:21. With Angelique from the Shetland Islands finishing in on a 10:33.01. So fastest from this morning's session in the women's 800 meter freestyle was Maddie Russell on a 9:41.14, with one more heat to swim this evening, which will be the fastest heat. So in a moment we're just going to have a short interlude for about 10 minutes, and once we come back after that break, we'll move into the relay events, the team events. So we have 3 team events this morning: the men's 4x100 meter freestyle relay, the women's 400 meter medley relay, and then finishing off this morning's session is the mixed 4x50 meter freestyle relay. So that's where we have 2 men and 2 women going on the same team, racing in whatever order they wish to swim. And so we will come back in just a moment for the remaining events of this morning's session. Welcome back. And in a moment we're just going to move on to the first of the relay events, and that's going to be the men's 4x100 meter freestyle team relay. And in the event we have 2 heats, and in the first of those heats we have teams from Gotland, Faroe Islands, Guernsey Jersey and the Shetland Isles all swimming. And the current Island Games record is held by the Cayman Islands. And that dates back to 2013 in a time of 3:20.65. And that was a team of Alexander McCallum, Brett Fraser, his brother Sean Fraser, and Jeffrey Butler. And unlike the individual heats, the relay heats are not cyclically seeded, so there are no entry times for these teams. So they are randomly allocated to the different lanes in the different heats. But going first for Gotland in lane 1 will be Jack Stolberg. For the Faroe Islands in lane 2, it'll be Isaac Dag Breerfeld. In Guernsey, it will be Charlie Joe Halliot leading out. Joseph Stewart for Jersey in lane 4 will take the opening leg. And finally, Kaylin Johnson from the Shetland Isles in lane 5. So the current record is set at 3:20.65 by the Cayman Islands. So that would mean that those 4 swimmers at the time would have all been swimming on average 50 points for the 100 freestyle. So that's 4 men swimming each of their legs in 50 seconds. So that's quick swimming. First relay heat underway, and Charlie Joe Halliot in lane 3 from Guernsey is taking the lead at the 25-metre mark, and he's followed by the Jersey swimmer and the Faroe Islands swimmer in lanes 4 and 2 respectively. So Jersey with the red hat and the Faroe Islands with the blue hat, and splitting those in the middle is Charlie Joe Halliot in the white hat from Guernsey, and he goes out first on a 25.35. And he's maintaining that lead with Isaac Breerfeld from the Faroe Islands being close behind, and Charlie's going to finish on a 53.26, and taking over from Charlie Joe Halliot on the second leg for Guernsey is Thomas Hollingsworth. He's already swum this morning on the 100 metres backstroke. And for the Faroe Islands, it's Henny Moore Askham. While for Jersey, Isaac Dodds, who's also swum this morning, he's swum the 400 freestyle after winning the 800 freestyle last night, goes for Jersey in lane 4 in the red hat. That's Tom Hollingsworth, still leading for the moment with 20 metres left to swim. There's He's going to touch first in a 146.56. So Tom Hollingsworth also splitting a 53 for his 100 leg. And taking over from Tom Hollingsworth in lane 3 is Owain Edwards for Guernsey, and for Jersey, who is moving level with the Faroe Islands, it's Thomas Defanes, and for the Faroe Islands it's Liglas Johansson. And these are the top 3 teams currently, with Owain Edwards just maintaining the lead ahead of the other 2 swimmers, but the other 2 swimmers are starting to pull him back. It may well be a tight finish, and it will come down to the swimmers who go in for the final 4th leg to determine who will win this event. But it's Owain Edwards finishing there in a 2:40, with Samuel Lowe taking over for Guernsey in lane 3, and Bartel Erlings Edersgaard taking the lead for the Faroe Islands in lane 2, with Ollie Breo for Jersey in lane 4. So it's Bertel Edersgaard extending the Faroe Islands lead over the Jersey team, with 25 metres left to swim. Sam Lowe for Guernsey in 3rd, making up the top 3 places. So the Faroe Islands come in to finish on a 3:32.37, followed by Jersey in a 3:34 and Guernsey in a 3:36. The Shetland Islands finish, and then Gotland are in 5th, finishing on a 3:48.01. Next up will be Heat 2.
Right, the next heat, I think,
And Heat 2 will have teams from the Isle of Wight, Mallorca, Cayman Islands, Western Isles, Orkney, and the Isle of Man.
Right, heat number 2, will you come down please, lads? Come down for heat number 2 of event number 43, the men's 4x100 metre freestyle relay. While you're catching to the pool indoor, I'll give you lane 1, I'm going to the Isle of Wight, that's George Hayward, Ross Martin there for one, Julian Davidson, and then Randa Hillstrata. And also will be Luke Cortesana, David Simone Pons, Alex Gomez Carreras, and George Sawyer S. Lane 3, Cayman Islands, Jake Bailey, Thomas Ferguson, Aidan Van Powell, and Will Sellers. Lane 4, Western Isles, Mark Morrison, Liam McFarlane, Matthew Hanlon, and Kyle McDonald. Lane 5 is Alfie Price for Orkney, Kieran Smith, Jack Wallace, and Fraser Burton. And in lane number 6 for the Isle of Man, Magnus Kelly, Alex Turnbull, Ben Keble, and Carrick Thompson. So those are the names and lanes for heat number 2 of event 43.
This is the second heat for the men's 4x100 metre freestyle team relay. So they already know what they need to do. The first 3 teams in the previous heat, the slowest of those 3 was Guernsey at a 3:36. That's the time to beat.
Take your marks.
So we have the Cayman Islands leading the way in lane 3, with the Isle of Man also just closely behind it in lane 6. So in the water for the Cayman Islands is Jake Bailey on the lead-off leg, and he touches first in a 25.29, followed closely by Magnus Kelly from the Isle of Man in a 25.56, with George Hayward from the Isle of Wight in a 26.23. But it's the Isle of Man and also the Cayman Islands who are extending their lead. And it's going to be either of these teams who's going to touch first on the first leg. It's likely going to be Cayman Islands. Jake Bailey finishing on a 52.81. These two teams are moving ahead and away from the rest of the field. And earlier I was talking about the technique for 800 freestyle swimming and talking about 2 and 4 beat leg kicks, but we can see there in lane 3 by the Cayman Isles swimmer in particular using a very strong 6 beat leg kick, which is what sprint swimmers typically use, and he's also using that high elbow arm recovery over the water. So that's Thomas Ferguson from the Cayman Islands coming in to touch. With Aidan van der Trouw taking over on the third leg for the Cayman Islands. Benjamin Cabell for the Isle of Man going in third for that team in lane 6. And it's going to be the Isle of Man team who've moved into a lead with Benjamin Cable swimming away from the Cayman Islands for him at his 50-metre turn. So he's got under 50 metres left to swim before Carrick Thompson takes over for the fourth anchor leg, the fourth and final leg for the relay. Going in for the Cayman Islands team will be Will Sellers. There's going to be the Isle of Man team in lane 6 who've built a commanding lead there on the third leg ahead of the Cayman Islands, and they go in first with less than 100 metres left to swim. And again in lane 6 we see a good example of a very strong 6 beat leg kick which the sprint swimmers use. And a very quick tumble turn as well, so swimmers want to get as tightly tucked as they can on the tumble turn so that they can get over the wall and get it through the turn as quickly as possible. So a nice tight tuck, plant their feet on the wall and extend almost like you're jumping vertically up in the air, but you're on your side, so you're pushing outwards, and if you're in a streamlined shape you can get further off the wall. And we're going to have the Island Man swimmer touching first, and those swimmers finish in a 3:31.84 with the Cayman Islands swimming in a 3:37.49. Next was the Isle of Wight in a time of 3:43. So the top 5 teams going in tonight's final will be the Isle of Man on a 3:31, followed by the Faroe Islands on a 3:32, Jersey on a 3:34, Guernsey on a 3:36, and the Cayman Islands on a 3:37. So they're the top 5 teams for tonight's final. Next will be the women's relay, and their turn on the 4x100 metre medley team relay. So swimmers swim the strokes in a particular order: backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly and front crawl. And in the first heat we have teams from the Faroe Islands, Guernsey, Jersey and the Shetland Islands. So we have 4 teams going. So leading off on the backstroke leg for the Faroe Islands will be Elizabeth Errolsdottir. For Guernsey it'll be Tatiana Tostovan. For Jersey it's going to be Megan Hansford. And for the Shetland Islands it will be Bethany Irvine. The current record is held by the Isle of Man team, set in 2015 at a time of 4:15.64. And that's the team made up of Emma Hodgson, Steph Brew, Charlotte Atkinson and Laura Keenley. So Laura Keeley's also swimming this week, having swum there in 2015 and also in 2019 at the Island Games. And Charlotte Atkinson, the well-renowned butterfly swimmer, both on the 100 and then 200 metres, who represented Great Britain in 2017 at the World Swimming Championships.
Laura McCarr, Oriana Wheeler and Molly Staples. Jersey will be Megan Hansford, Erin Goodbody, Clara Ginnis and Alana Woodall. Lane 5 for Shetland Islands, Bethany Irvine, Freya Masson, Rona Anderson and Angelika Samohavalova. So that's it so far. You've had your music and your announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, quiet round the pool, please. Over to Madam Referee.
This is the first heat of the women's 4x100 metre medley relay. 2 heats. First up, Faroe Islands, Guernsey, Jersey and the Shetland Islands.
Take your mark.
So going all the way to 14.5 metres there was the Jersey swimmer in lane 4 in the red hat, Megan Hansford. And beside her in lane 3, just slightly in the lead, Tatiana Tostovan from Guernsey, together with Elizabeth Earlsdottir from the Faroe Isles in the blue cap in lane 2. And it is the Faroe Islands who are going to take the touch and the lead at the turn. And Elizabeth Earlsdottir from the Faroe Isles touching there and turning in a time of 30.78. So there are 8 teams in total for this event, with 6 places up to grabs. So that means that really, if you finish in the top 3 of both heats, you're likely to make the final, and that might be something to do with some of the tactics the teams might implement today. But we have the backstroke leg finishing, and then the Faroe Isles and the Guernsey swimmers, that's Elizabeth Earlsdottir and Tatiana Tostovan, touching in a 63. And in the water we currently have Laura Carr for Guernsey, Idrid Waterson from the Faroe Islands, and Erin Goodbody from Jersey. And these 3 swimmers are starting to be spread out evenly across the pool, with 50 metres left to swim for their individual legs. And it's the Faroe Islands who are maintaining their lead on the breaststroke leg, and they may well look to finish first and touch. And taking over on the fly leg for them will be Johanna Olavsdottir, and for Guernsey it'll be Oriana Wheeler, and for Jersey it's Clara Guinness. And Oriana Wheeler, who is seeded fastest into tonight's 200 metre butterfly final in lane 3, is going for Guernsey here, and she's now moved in front of and is moving away from the swimmer from the Faroe Islands on the butterfly leg, and she has taken over the lead for Guernsey, and she has 35 metres left to swim for her leg before the freestyle leg. And for Guernsey, that's going to be swum by Molly Staples, and for the Faroe Isles it's going to be Lisha Vestergaard going in the water, while for Jersey it'll be Alana Woodall swimming the anchor leg for them. So Oriana Wheeler touches first, with Molly Staples taking over, followed by the Faroe Islands and Jersey. And similar to the men just a moment ago on the freestyle, we can see a very strong 6-beat leg kick there from Molly Staples. Good body position, nice body roll, head still. There's a high elbow recovery. She's sprinting down the third length, ready for her final turn. With a nice tight tuck on the tumble, good streamlining underwater and up into her swimming stroke. And she has 10 meters left to swim. So it looks like Guernsey will take the heat, followed by the Faroe Islands and then Jersey in third. And it is Molly Staples from Guernsey, touching first in a 4:23, followed by the Faroe Islands in a 4:26 and Jersey in a 4:27. Next will be the second heat, and again there's going to be 4 teams in the next heat. So they will be the Cayman Islands, the Isle of Wight, Åland and the Isle of Man. They'll be swimming up next. And on the backstroke leg for the Cayman Islands will be Sarah Jackson. For the Isle of Wight, it will be Abigail Lacey. For Åland, it will be Nova Larson. And for the Isle of Man, it will be Elizabeth Curfew.
So ladies, will you come on down, please? Come on down to our heat number 2 of event number 44. I know you want some food. So he's going to do it late. From Cayman Islands, Sarah Jackson, Sabine Ellison, Alison Belfonte and Kira Rabes. Lane 3 for the Isle of Wight, Abigail Lacey, Grace Pointer, Lucy Isaacson and Nell O'Brien. Lane number 4 for the Åland, Nova Larson, Emilian Matar, Wilma Danielson and Selma Nordberg. Lane number 5 for the Isle of Man, Elizabeth Curfew, Kira Prentice, Robin Douglas and Lauren Dennett. So swimmers are ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. Please, your silence around the pool until we get underway. Over to you, Mr. Referee, sir.
Heat 2 of the women's 400 metre medley team relay. The teams from the Cayman Islands, Isle of Wight, Åland and the Isle of Man. Heat 2 is away. The swimmer in lane 3 from the Isle of Wight, Abigail Lacey, taking an early lead at the 25, followed by Sarah Jackson from Cayman Islands in lane 2. Elizabeth Curfew in lane 5 from the Isle of Man is just behind. Abigail Lacey turning first, 31.77. Elizabeth Curfew just getting the touch ahead of the Cayman Island swimmer at the 50 metre turn. It's Abigail Lacey extending her lead on the backstroke with 5 metres to go, and they're going to touch first, and she touches with a time of 66.09, And on the breaststroke leg for the Isle of Wight is Grace Pointer in the water. While for the Cayman Islands, it's Sabine Ellison. And for the Isle of Man, it's Kyra Prentice. There's Grace Pointer there in the silver hat of the Isle of Wight, coming up to the 50-metre turn on her breaststroke leg. And she turns in a 140.48, and she's got about a 10-metre lead ahead of the teams from the Isle of Man and the Cayman Islands. So the lead that Abigail Lacey built on the first 100 for the Isle of Wight is being maintained by their breaststroke swimmer Grace Pointer. While the Cayman Islands are just starting to move ahead of the team in lane 5. The Isle of Man, their swimmer Sabine Ellison starting to move ahead, but it's the Isle of Wight touching first at halfway in a time of 2:20, with Lucy Isaacson taking over for them on the butterfly leg. And in the water for the Cayman Islands is Alison Belfonte, and for the Isle of Man it's Robin Douglas. But the Isle of Wight are extending their lead, and it's already out to nearly 15 metres. Lucy Isaacson touching with 50 metres left to go on her leg. After that, it will be Nell O'Brien taking over for the anchor leg on the front crawl, the Isle of Wight. Kyra Ravis for the Cayman Islands. And for the Isle of Man, it will be Lauren Dennett. And the swimmers from the Cayman Islands are starting to reel in Lucy Isaacson from the Isle of Wight. That lead that she had, which was about 15 metres, has now dropped to about 5 metres. But nevertheless, the Isle of Wight are still leading, with Nell O'Brien in the water for the freestyle anchor leg, but being chased by Kyra Ravis from the Cayman Islands in lane 2, and Lauren Dennett in lane 5. And that lead is being held at around about 3 metres. But that turn from Kyra Ravis took a lot of distance out of the swimmer from the Isle of Wight, and she's drawing up level. With final turn to go, Kyra Ravis has drawn up level to the swimmer in the Isle of Wight, and it will come down to the touch and the last 5 metres. But it will be the Isle of Wight that just holds on by 9/100ths of a second or so, maybe 8/100ths of a second there between first and second place on the final leg, and that was between Nell O'Brien for the Isle of Wight and Kyra Ravis for the Cayman Islands. So 4:33 for both teams, with a 4:38 by the Isle of Man. So looking at the times there, those teams making the top 6 for this evening were Guernsey on a 4:23, the Faroe Islands on a 4:26, Jersey on a 4:27, then the Isle of Wight on a 4:33, the Cayman Islands on a 4:33, and the Isle of Man on a 4:38. So what we have now is a short break, and the reason why we have a short break is because previously the men have just swum a relay and the women have just swum a relay. But what happens next is we now have a mixed relay. So some of the swimmers have just swum. We'll just need a little bit of a warm down and a little bit of a just cool down in terms of just getting their breath back, because they will be going again on the mixed freestyle team relay. So what that means is you have 2 women and 2 men swimming on a mixed team. And it's a 4x50 relay. And swimmers can swim in any order they choose. So it's not fixed. It's not as though the first 2 have to be men or the first 2 have to be women. The teams can choose which order their swimmers can swim in, which means that actually tracking the race and seeing who's where is a very interesting thing, because you might have a team that sends out their 2 men swimmers first, followed by their 2 women swimmers, and you might have a team that has the opposite tactics. And it'll be very interesting then to see how the 2 men going in the latter legs chase the 2 women on those legs down. So it's all to play for. It can be very exciting, but it's also difficult sometimes to track to see who's going to ultimately end the race as the winner. And in the mixed 4x50 freestyle team relay, we have 2 heats. The first heat will be the Falkland Islands, the Faroe Islands, Shetland Islands, Cayman Islands and the Isle of Man. And in the second heat we have the Isle of Wight, Greenland, Orkney, Minorca and Åland. So we will be back in just a few minutes with the final event of the swimming program and the final set of heats for this morning. Welcome back after the short break. What we have next is the final event of this morning's program, which is the mixed 4x50 freestyle team relay. So this is where we have a mixed team, 2 women and 2 men going for their nations. And in the first heat we have the team from the Falkland Islands, Faroe Islands, Shetland Islands, Cayman Islands and also the Isle of Man. And heat 1 is underway, and forgive me, there's been a change in the schedule of the teams in the event. In the water we have Gibraltar, the Western Isles, Guernsey and Jersey. And touching first there for the Western Isles was Matt Hanlon, and they've elected to send their male swimmer out first. And now we have the Jersey team extending with their male swimmer George Story taking over in second, and in the water for Guernsey taking over from Tatiana Tostevin is Johnny Beck. Well, for Jersey, it's Elizabeth Powell who's being chased down by Johnny Beck. And we now have for Jersey and Guernsey 2 men going in the final anchor leg. That will be Charlie Joe Hallett and Ollie Breu for Jersey, and they dive in together. And it'll be these 2 teams who will look to battle it out for first and second place in this first heat of the mixed 4x50 freestyle team relay. And it looks like Ollie Breu may get the touch with 5 meters left to swim, and he does, only by 0.2 of a second. So first Jersey, then Guernsey, followed by Gibraltar and then the Western Isles. Next up will be Heat 2.
Clear the one, please. Women, clear the
So first there was Jersey and 141. Guernsey also on a 141. Gibraltar on a 149. And Western Isles on a 155.33. Next will be Heat 2, with the teams being paraded down onto poolside, ready to start.
So in number 2 we have the Falkland Islands, Faroe Islands, Shetland Islands, Cayman Islands and the Isle of Man. In lane 1, the Falkland Islands are Oscar Casson, Nell Ford, George Lee and Ella Clements. Lane 2, Faroe Islands are Elisa Vestegard, Roland Tufton, Elizabeth Erlendsdottir and Bartel Adesgard. Lane 3 is Shetland's Magnus Buller, Anne Hutchinson, Jasmine Smith and Joe Carter. Lane 4, Cayman Islands, Thomas Ferguson, Jake Bailey, Alison Jackson and Kira Rabes. And Lane 5, Isle of Man's Joel Watterson, Pete Allen, Laura Kinley and Kira Prentice. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, please your silence around the pool. Over to you, Mr. Referee, sir.
So this will be the second heat.
Take your marks.
And they are away. So the Isle of Man are electing to send their 2 fast male swimmers out first. So that's Joel Waterson, followed by Peter Allen. And then following them will be Laura Keenley and Kira Prentice on the anchor leg. It's the same tactic that the Cayman Island swimmers will be using as well. They're sending out Thomas Ferguson, followed by Jake Bailey, with their 2 women, Alison Jackson and Kyra Ravis, going out in the second part of the race. And it's those 2 teams who are leading, followed by the Faroe Islands in lane 2. So the Isle of Man coming in to touch at the 100-metre mark, with Peter Allen touching first, with Laura Kinley taking over on the 3rd leg, closely followed by Alison Jackson from the Cayman Islands and Elizabeth Erlendsdottir for the Faroe Islands in lane 2. So it's these 3 teams who are looking to lead this heat, with Laura Keenley sprinting in with 5 metres left to go, beside her with Alison Jackson from the Cayman Islands. But it's the Isle of Man still leading. But the Isle of Man didn't have as clean a takeover as the Cayman Island swimmer, and the Cayman Island swimmer has caught up and has gained a short lead over the Isle of Man. So it's Kyra Rabis for the Cayman Islands coming in to look to finish, and it looks to be that team who will touch first in a 139, followed by the Isle of Man, followed by the Faroe Islands. So first was the Cayman Islands, for the anchor leg of Kyra Rabis, followed then by the teams from the Isle of Man and the Faroe Islands, with Shetland Islands and the Falkland Islands in 3rd, 4th and 5th. And here we are for the final event of this morning. Heat 3 of the mixed 4x50 metre freestyle team relay. And we have teams from the Isle of Wight, Greenland, Orkney, Minorca and Åland.
So swimmers come down the lane, gents come down the reach for the 3 of 3. Lane 1 will give the Isle of Wight 2 with Regina, 3 Orkney, 4 Menorca, and 5 Orland. Standing in lane 1 for the Isle of Wight, we've got Joe Carter, Nell O'Brien, Abigail Lacey, and George Haywood. Lane 2 for Greenland, we have Gustav Jensen, Sissu Pettersson, Matilda Markusson, and Ayla Sorensen. Lane 3 for Orkney, Jenna Clapham, Alfie Price, Eve Wood, and Fraser Burton. Lane 4 Menorcas is Luke Cortesala, Georgina Massanes Pans, George Soyanes, and Mariano Alescapo. In lane 5 for Orland, Milo Bergman, Ellen Voivelin, Jenny Eck, and Hugo Mirren. So they are at the pools ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, please, for the final time this morning, or at least 5 to 1, your silence around the pool. Over to you, Madam Referee. Silence around the pool, please, guys. Thank you.
Third and final heat of the VIX 4x50 freestyle team relay, and the time to watch is a 1:41. So currently the Cayman Islands are ranked fastest based on the times from this morning on a 3:39, and we have 4 teams, Jersey, Guernsey, Isle of Man and the Faroe Islands, all in on a 1:41 currently. And the teams are away, with 4 of the teams choosing to send men out on the first leg, with only Orkney, and that's Jenna Clapham, the only women in lane 3, swimming for those. So we'll expect them to pull the others back once the men get in the water. But it's the Isle of Wight touching first with Joe Carter in lane 1 on a time of 24.65. And in the water for the Isle of Wight is Nell O'Brien. But she's being chased by the Greenland swimmer beside her, Sissu Peterson. He's taken over a slight lead from the Isle of Wight. And with the Isle of Wight swimmer going next, Abigail Lacey. And she's in the water in lane 1. And beside her is Matilda Markusson from Greenland. And these 2 teams are leading the way. And it is indeed Abigail Lacey starting to move away. And they will have George Haywood anchoring their relay leg, about to take over. And he is in the water. And they have a lead over the others of about 3 seconds. And it's George Haywood with 25 metres left to swim. With the other teams in a line. So 5 metres left for George Haywood from the Isle of Wight. And he's going to touch at a 1:44.22. So it looks like the teams for tonight's final will be made up from the teams from the Cayman Islands, Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, the Faroe Islands, and also the Isle of Wight on that mixed 4x50 freestyle team relay. So that concludes the 12 events from this morning's swimming program. And if we take a quick look at the swimming medal table, no medals were won this morning, but in order to set ourselves up for this evening, we can see that Jersey topped the swimming medal table with 11 golds, followed by Guernsey with 7, and the Isle of Man also with 7. The reason why Guernsey are ahead in the medal tables, they have more silver medals, and that's 9-3. Next are the Cayman Islands with 4 gold medals, the Faroe Isles with 3 gold medals, and Gibraltar with 1 gold medal, and that was in the 200 metres breaststroke for women. So we'll be back this evening for the final session of the final day of the swimming, and that'll be at 6 p.m. and that will be live streamed. And so far, over the last 3 days of swimming, we've had over 2,250 live viewers across all broadcasts from 61 different countries, with 4,500 hours of broadcasted swimming consumed across the world. So that's a pretty good statistic for our live streaming. And what we'll do now is, as we just close, we'll move on to enjoying some of the highlights from this morning's session.